What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the SomeWhatSports Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm joined by the best in the business, as always, weekly, all the time, every time. Just greatness follows me everywhere. Jurg and Dame, how are we today?
I'm doing pretty good personally. Got off of work a while ago, and as always, like I say, the highlight of my Thursdays is when we get together via computer and just break everything down, talk sports, and have a good time. And as per usual, we're ready for another banger of an episode tonight, boys.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I don't have as long as a response as that because my life is pretty boring. But I'm doing good. Happy to be here. Can't wait for the weekend.
All right, I'm glad everyone's doing well. But yeah, like Jurg said, we got a pretty stacked lineup this week. We got an NHL updates as per usual from our connoisseur Jurg. We Julio Jones trade finally happened. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We
Bless.
have content to talk about, not just hypotheticals. We have legitimate stories to break down and analyze. And then we're going to talk about a certain someone on the Dallas Mavericks feeling a little bit frustrated. His feelings are hurt. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up by talking about the NBA playoffs. The current matchups were in the semifinals in that sport. And NHL, are they in the semifinals, Jurg? Or are they about to or are they about to wrap up in the
It
semifinals?
is it is almost time. There's only one semifinal series remaining, and Game 6 of it actually happens tonight. So, potentially, once this episode gets posted, we're either going to be to the Final Four or we're going to be awaiting Game 7. So it's exciting.
Sounds like predictions that people could vote upon
Yeah.
on Instagram, I wonder what like a page I wonder what sports page does that where you could kind of, vote on polls. Jurg, is there a sports page that like allows you to vote?
I've heard of one called SomeWhatSports on Instagram. They've been posting polls daily, asking what do the people feel, who do they think is winning on any given night, and it's been pretty good, pretty successful from what I'm hearing. So
Mm, I also heard that there's gonna be a little graphic series pulling up soon.
oh
That just rumors. That's what the streets are saying. But when we get there, we'll get there, and we'll talk about it. But let's start the show. Jurg, please do what you do best, which is start us off fresh, start us off clean with an NHL update. Tell me what you got.
well, what we have is, as I've mentioned before, we are nearly at the Final Four now. As of we are recording this, Game 6 between the Colorado Avalanche and Vegas Golden Knights is set to get going in a couple of hours. Puck is going to drop, and we are going to wait and see. Are we going to have a finalized four-team, uh, finale, or are we going to get a Game 7? And I'm very excited for that. Myself personally, I'm hoping for a Game 7. Not even just based off of predictions, but just because Vegas, Colorado, like we need that to go to 7 just for pure enjoyment purposes for the fans. In that series, so I believe in last week's playoff update that I gave, I forget if it was either 2-0 or 2-1, but the Colorado Avalanche looked like the series was well within their control. Uh, Going back to last week, they were the offensively dominant team. They just absolutely slaughtered Vegas in game 1, and they won a close game. I think it went to overtime in game 2. And going up 2-0, going to Vegas, it scared a lot of Knights fans into thinking that, hey, maybe this Colorado team is even better than what we all expected. And the fact that you could even have said that for a moment about the President's Trophy winning team says a lot. But Vegas has rebounded well. They've won 3 straight games, of course, to now have this lead going into game 6. They've done it off the back of the fact that, just pure defense shutting down this high-powered Avs offense. The last 2 games, Marc-Andre Fleury has not had to deal with a lot of total shots going his way, and that's not Colorado's game. Colorado's game is attacking, just getting pucks on the net constantly, creating pressure by just attacking the goalie, and Fleury has not had to deal with that. This Vegas Golden Knights defense has certainly locked down, and they have somehow slowed a Colorado Avalanche team that no one would have expected to get slowed down like that, especially the first round, them sweeping St. Louis. They were 6 for 12 on the power play. Game 1, of course, in this series, they scored like 7 or 8 goals. It looked like they weren't going to be stopped, but Vegas has found a way and they hold the edge. I'm really interested to see what happens tonight. Now, the winner of the series, actually, the fun part is that we already have the matchup set from every other series, because the Final Four were always going to be reseeded, actually, based off of regular season performance. And no matter who wins between Vegas or Colorado, we definitively have our matchup. So the winner of this series will take on the most surprising team, the Cinderella run of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, the Montreal Canadiens, who played the Uno reverse card against the Winnipeg Jets after Winnipeg swept the Edmonton Oilers. Montreal swept Winnipeg right back. So that was quite the entertaining series. Highlighted predominantly what most people are going to talk about was the fact that one of the Jets' big time players got suspended after game one for a hit, and he was actually suspended for 4 games. So, fun fact, he actually has to serve that final game for game one of next year's regular season. You got to feel for the guy. But he was suspended, and that kind of shifted the series. But ultimately, it's Carey Price and the fact that he is looking like the Carey Price of old. Playoff Price, this is what playoff P should be like, by the way. Stepping up in the playoffs and giving your team the best chance to win. Carey Price, when you look at the last 3-4 times he's been in the playoffs, a sub 2 goals against average every single time. And if it is above 2, it's barely like a 2.05 or 2.1. A save percentage in the 9.2s, the 9.3s, just constantly giving Montreal a chance to win. Like they scored some goals against Winnipeg, but then they also had the low scoring games where they only put up 1 or 2, but it was fine because Carey Price was literally a brick wall. You could show me a picture of a brick wall and I will confuse it for Carey Price. That's how amazing he's been in the playoffs so far. That's why they upset Toronto in 7 games, and now they've made it all the way to the Final Four. I'm calling it that because this is not the conference finals, because we technically don't have conferences this season. This is actually, by technical term, the Stanley Cup semifinals. So there we go. So in one semifinal matchup, it'll be Montreal trying to continue the Cinderella run against, whether it's Colorado or Vegas, they're going up against what's going to be the heavy favorite, no matter who it is. Both teams have the goaltending to match up with Montreal, and they easily have the more dominant, more consistent offense and the bigger names. So it'll be another uphill battle for the Canadiens, and we'll see if they can continue this run. As I believe 1993, it was 93 or 94, was the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. And it was Montreal, funny enough, who did that. So we're going to be waiting to see if they can be the first Canadian team since literally themselves to do it, or if we'll have to wait yet another year for that. And then on the other side of things, we actually have a rarity, especially this deep in the playoffs, a rematch between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders. Last season in the bubble, the Lightning dispatched the Isles in 6 games, and they did so off the backs of just pure offense. Vasilevsky, I think that was a series. I wouldn't say he struggled, but the Islanders definitely got to him a little bit, and we're going to see if they could do the same thing. Semyon Varlamov has been outstanding in net, so let me actually review those series really fast. The Tampa Bay Lightning beat the Carolina Hurricanes in 5 games. It started out very strange as it was a low-scoring series the first few games. Game 4, the offense really picked up. I actually color casted the game, and it was one of the most entertaining games I've ever seen. I think legitimately the best playoff game of these playoffs, I would argue it, and maybe one of the best playoff games we've seen in the last couple of years. And Tampa Bay ended up winning it. At one point, they were down 4-2, and they scored like 4 straight goals, I think, to take the win. And then Vasilevsky shuts it down in game 5 with a shutout, literally. So he was phenomenal. And they need that because they're going up against the Islanders. Varlamov just helped the team win 3 straight against the Boston Bruins when they were down 2-1. The Bruins offense only stepped up in game 5, and that was a game where the Isles just barely won it. And then ultimately in games 4 and 6, the Islanders just completely blew out Boston. Another disappointing end to the season for Boston. Can't blame the goalie this time because Rask was actually hurt and tried to play through injury, but you could tell he wasn't 100%. And this season, it was the key to Boston. If Tuukka Rask was not healthy, they were not going to succeed. They were not going to be a winning team. And we saw it firsthand. The Islanders just completely took advantage. They overpowered them. They outplayed them in net, outplayed them on the ice, and that's why the Islanders have made it back, and they definitely deserve it. And we'll see if they could get some sweet revenge for themselves facing the team that defeated them, facing the defending Stanley Cup champions. Varlamov Vasilevsky is one of the best goaltending matchups. Honestly, we're guaranteed to get great goaltending matchups no matter who advances over between Colorado and Vegas. So we're going to get 4 teams with outstanding goaltending, varying levels of defense, and varying levels of offense. I'm very excited that this is going to be how the Final Four shapes up. You have an original 6 team and a Canadian team in Montreal who shocked us all. They're the Cinderella team. You have the powerhouses in Vegas and Tampa, or Colorado if they advance. And then you have the Islanders they're that blue collar team that, they fight every single night. both literally and figuratively sometimes. They compete hard. They are a well-coached team defensively. Essentially, consider what the Knicks were this past season in the NBA. That's the identity of the Islanders, and they definitely have a chance here. They made it this far, so they technically have a chance. But to knock out the defending Cup champions, that'll be a whole other task in and of itself. But I'm very excited for the Stanley Cup semifinals. I think we're set to have a outstanding finish to it, especially because we could get so many different kinds of entertaining matchups. I'm personally excited for it.
And that's it.
Yeah, we're just gonna wait to see the finalization of it, and then we go from there. I think the first games will be in a few days. I hope. I haven't seen an updated schedule, at least not yet, but I really hope they don't do the thing where they start the Tampa and Islander series before, like, way too before the Vegas Colorado series. Like, I don't want Game 7 to happen, but like the day before that is Game 1 of another series. I don't want that to happen. That's stupid. They should let that series play out. Let us have our proper Final Four, and we go from there. So I'm just gonna hope for that. But aside from that, yeah, we recapped the draft lottery last week, and I said my thoughts. There'll be an expansion of some of those thoughts coming soon. But aside, yeah, a little teaser there. But aside from that, I always say this, and I prefer to say this, but the NHL, things are going good right now. It's all you could ask for.
That's great to hear. I hear just noise from Damien's end, and I'm not surprised. But astute analysis as always, Jurg.
That ass didn't say anything.
But I hear a lot of rufflaging and all that nonsense.
My headphone fell.
Sit still.
That's it.
Sit
It
still.
literally, my headphone fell one time. Relax.
Just disrupting the podcast.
Relax.
Whatever. All right. We move on to football news as, yes, a major trade occurred. Julio Jones has officially been traded. That's
Finally.
right, folks. Yeah, I know, right? We've been guessing and just like predicting where he would go. And the smoke was real. Julio Jones has been officially traded to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans will send a 2022 second round pick and a 2023 fourth round pick to the Falcons. Titans get Julio Jones, of course, but they also receive the Falcons' 2023 sixth round pick. I want to start off with Dame on this. General thoughts, but also what do you think of the package that the Titans gave up for Julio Jones?
The package I think was fair. They were never gonna get a first round pick for him because of his contract. It's fully guaranteed. I think he signed like the first fully guaranteed contract for a wide receiver at like $66 million for 3 years or something like that. So they were never gonna get a first round pick for him because, especially since all the contenders that would be looking to trade for him are kind of against the cap. So a second round pick I think is fair. Second and fourth I think is fair. Big credit to Joe Douglas. He got more for Sam Darnold than the Falcons got for Julio Jones. Just throwing that out there. When it comes to what it does for the Titans, however, I do think it gives them honestly one of the best offenses in the entire league. Especially up there in the AFC with these great offenses, you really need a big explosive offense like that with the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, teams like that. Do I think it makes them a championship contender? No. Do I think it makes them their division leader? Yes. Before this trade, I probably had the Colts there, but adding Julio Jones alongside A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, I'm definitely going to give them a nod as the favorites in their division. But when I was looking at it, I think they're the fifth best team in the AFC now. I have them, the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills.
No spoilers. We need this for a future episode.
Bro, shut up. The Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Browns, I think are all better than them. I'm not telling you what order. I'm not telling you their record. I'm not telling you where they're going to end up. Those 14 teams I think are better than them. Then I think comes the Titans. It's not because their offense, because obviously, like I said, the offense I think is one of the best in the league. It's their defense. It's really, really bad, and they just keep losing players every year, and I don't really see them replacing them in the offseason, but it's through a draft or free agency. I don't see them making any big moves to replace these guys that they're losing. I know Mike Vrabel is supposed to be a defensive coach. I'm sure he is, but when you don't have players to make it happen, like, it's going to be tough. But hopefully, I guess their strategy is their offense is going to be so good, they're going to put up so much points, and then with Derrick Henry running the ball, they're going to dominate the time possessions to keep that defense off the field. But overall, the Falcons, I think, got the best deal they possibly could have gotten. The Titans did what they had to do to improve their team, so it's a good deal on both sides.
So I definitely think, just talent-wise, I was surprised that the Falcons didn't get a first-round pick. I definitely understand to the point when Dame talks about the contract. I think that's ultimately the only reason it wasn't, because if you're talking about just pure talent, like DeAndre Hopkins, within the last 24 hours said something about like, how did DeAndre Hopkins only get traded for a second round pick? Like of what was the best asset going back in the deal. DeAndre Hopkins got traded for a second, and as did Julio Jones, which is wild to me. And wide receivers can be traded for first because Stephon Diggs got quite a haul back for the Minnesota Vikings. And I know Julio's a little older, and a lot of people are going to try to point to injuries, but I think he's only had 2 seasons in his career of 13 games played or less, or 2 seasons where it's less than 13 games played. So the fact that that's the case, I just think I'm dumbfounded that no one pulled the trigger, but I'm going to get to that in a quick second here. Chris, I'll let you segue us into that actually. But just on the basis of the trade itself, I think that was an amazing move for Tennessee. Kind of like what Dame said, I was very low on the Titans coming into the going as we continue into the offseason. I'm not going to spoil where I thought. I'm going to save that for another time, but I had zero confidence in this team and what the season was going to be because I feel that eventually there were teams were going to figure out what the game plan was. I'm not saying stop Derrick Henry, but essentially, not allow Ryan Tannehill to look as good as he has had recently, even with as good as A.J. Brown is. They lost Jonnu Smith. They lost Corey Davis. Those are not positives. But now you get Julio Jones, and that completely changes the map because I know a lot of people, they don't like talking about wide receivers in this light, but let's be real here. Having a top-tier wide receiver significantly helps a franchise. It significantly helps an organization. And when you consider the fact that A.J. Brown, who's developing into a number 1 caliber receiver, right? Like, he is a phenomenal player. He now gets support in Julio Jones. You can't just double cover AJ Brown now because then you have Julio Jones to deal with. And you can't double cover both of them at the same time because then you're committing an extra safety. And Derrick Henry, by the way, is going to just rush up the middle and just smash you in the mouth. So this completely changes the complexion of the Titans offense, which I think when you look at the league overall now, it is more than obvious the fact that offense is what wins in today's league. Like, yes, a defense can win you a game or two, but it's best to just have the weapons there at your disposal, right? And there is absolutely no way you can convince me that the Julio Jones trade is bad in any way for Tennessee because they add a bona fide number 1 receiver to put next to their budding number 1 caliber receiver with one of, if not the best running back in the game. And if you don't want to give him that, at least the most unstoppable running back when he gets a full head of steam. Like, Ryan Tannehill's job just got easier. Mike Vrabel's job just got easier. Like Dame said, I'm still kind of iffy on them because of the defense, but that offense alone gives me a lot more faith in what they could do this season than before they executed the deal. So job well done. And again, for Atlanta, I understand the specific reasons as to why it didn't happen, but I'm just so sick and tired of a wide receiver of a Julio Jones caliber. Like, it just gets me frustrated that some teams that need a number 1 receiver or need like another guy don't make this deal or don't pursue it more. Again, I know we've spoken about this on the show, like NFL teams like Atlanta was not telling other teams what their trade packages were most likely because they're trying to like force teams to up on themselves. But man, I was so frustrated when it was just a second and a fourth. I was really, because Julio Jones is worth more. There is no second round pick in next year's draft that is going to do more in their career than what Julio Jones did. Like the odds that it'll happen are what, 2%. So you're that's just a frustrating portion. But at the end of the day, Atlanta got what they could get. They get some needed relief. I hope this is the sign of a true rebuild because Atlanta, they are nowhere near. While I do think second place is wide open in the NFC South, I don't think Atlanta is anywhere near that. And I think it's just time that they go through some sort of a rebuild. So, hey, good on them. You got some draft capital back for one of your best players, and that's more than what most people do. Most people just let their players get really old or really crippled and then either retire or get nothing back for them. So I got to give them some credit on that end.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts isn't too bad of a building block to start that rebuild, right? So
Yeah.
I agree with Dame that I had the Colts kind of winning that division, but now with the addition of Julio Jones, I think it's going to be neck and neck between the Titans and the Colts. I mean, Jurg, you kind of brought this up, but I wanted to ask, Jurg is surprised that the second and the fourth pick got it done, and you thought it could have been more. But Jurg, let me start off with you. Is there a team that you thought could have jumped on this deal for Julio if it required that little? And then Dame, you could respond too.
Just based off of, like, if you're talking about just based off of need, and it's like they just got to figure it out salary wise. How the heck do the Baltimore Ravens not go for this? Like, go
That's a good
all
point.
in?
Yeah,
We have said for the last 2 years, Lamar Jackson needs a number 1 caliber receiver, and Julio Jones could have been the guy because again, he's not as like injury prone as people think. Like, he does fight through injuries, but what else are you supposed to do in the NFL where we would question his toughness if he wasn't? So it's a double-edged sword for him, and I'm not going to hold that against him. And by the way, Julio Jones at 80% is better than 95% of the league's wide receivers at 100%. So let's make that clear. I'm sure there's another team or two. I don't want to take too many options away from Dame, but my number one is Baltimore. Like, how do you not give up something more? Like, even because it was a second and fourth, essentially, give up a second and like one of the receivers you have just randomly, like just something, or even you had 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. Like, I would have a late first-round pick for a Julio Jones. That's more than bang for your buck. Like, that is the part that frustrates me about it. And I understand the salary cap ramifications and all that, but at the same time, like, we see the gymnastics Kansas City is doing, and they paid Mahomes a $500 million contract. The Buccaneers did salary cap gymnastics this offseason for Brady. Like, I just find it an excuse. This is why Aaron Rodgers is so angry with the Packers, because it's like you can't use the salary cap as your excuse anymore when you see how these teams are moving around money and being able to sign these guys to these deals and keeping key pieces. You can't make that excuse anymore. It's either you're too shy on the trigger to do it, or you're completely run by buffoons in the case of Green Bay, and you have no idea how to manage the money to get more help for your franchise quarterback. Like, it's absolutely insane. I really hope Lamar Jackson is taking notes about what's happening in Green Bay, because if I'm him, I'm like, oh, a second and a fourth for a guy who would be my number one. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Like, it's ridiculous to me. It's just ridiculous that these teams, like, for some reason, and again, Dame being the Jets fan, he can understand this. Like, why do people not want to help their young quarterbacks? Like, can someone explain to me what this trend is of not helping young quarterbacks? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think he should have gone more, because I just believe I value receiver a little more than most people do. But for a number one receiver, like literally Hall of Famer, I don't know. I don't know how you don't get more aggressive. At least that's my biggest thing. Like, how are you not more aggressive in getting one of the best in the NFL?
Yeah, Dane, before you go, I agree with you, Jurg. I mean, personally, like, wide receiver is my favorite position, especially from like an aesthetic viewpoint. I just think they're so much fun to watch, and of course, you know, they're the ones that catch the deep throws and all that. But I think, like, I'm kind of done with just expecting Green Bay to make like a move like that. Like, we know we're immune to
That's
this
my
at this point.
fucking
They're
team.
not gonna like, but no, that was your team. That was your pick game.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, like, I mean, it's always a good pick because they're Green
It's
Bay's
common
like
sense,
never. It's
and they
common
don't
sense.
have it.
They're never making moves, but I'm just like it's such a cop out answer at this point because we know they're not progressive in just trying to make their team better. Like, I think Jalen Ramsey said this. I'm surprised the Rams didn't go for this, and maybe because, you know, they sent out 2 first rounders for Matt Stafford. But I'm like, if you're going for Matt Stafford, then that means you're trying to pursue you're trying to win now, right? And I feel like, man, Julio Jones would have, with Matt Stafford on the Rams, I feel like that team would have been in the driver's seat to win it all. So, I mean, look, you
Yeah.
guys know more than I do, so I'm just gonna pick the Rams in this scenario. But Jurg, I'm with you, man. For arguably the most talented wide receiver in the league, I think any team could have jumped at this, to be honest, man. Like, I get it, rebuilding teams, you know, you're on the rebuild, and then Julio Jones wants to win, but like, sheesh, bro. It's just, there can't be fear because, like, I don't know if Julio Jones doesn't seem like a locker room problem or like that kind of guy that would like cause trouble, but like he pushes you over the top in terms of trying to win a championship. So I'm with you. I'm just as surprised that it like more teams didn't jump on this. But Dame, I'll let you go ahead.
The Ravens is a really good pick. That's probably my second choice. But the thing with the Rams, although it is a good choice because they're going all in with Stafford, is just their salary cap situation is probably the worst in the league.
Okay.
Especially because they're paying Jared Goff to play in Detroit. Like, they have that salary cap hit. They have Stafford salary cap hit. Like, it's just really difficult to like squeeze Julio Jones's contract in there. But like, obviously it's a good choice because they are going for it. What's it called? With my pick is obviously the Packers. I know obviously it's a cop out answer, but this year with the situation they have now, it's more obvious that they should have went for this move because Aaron Rodgers is obviously not happy where he's at, not happy with the way the organization is running. So the easy way to fix is give up your if second round pick, give up a second and third, or give up your first because your first with Julio, Aaron Rodgers, and Devontae Adams is going to be a late first round pick anyway. And you already drafted your backup quarterback, so you're not going to do that. You're not going to draft a future quarterback since you have him sitting there already. So why not go get arguably the best wide receiver in the league, put him next to another arguably best wide receiver in the league, and give those two weapons to the reigning MVP and see what he does with it for his last 2 years of his career, 3 years, whatever he has left. And he would be happy. He'd be in OTAs, all these training camps and all these offseason programs happy, and there would be no drama. But yet, I don't know what they're doing. I didn't even see them in rumors at all for him. So
No, yeah, Dame, I definitely agree with your point, and that's my whole thing. It's like it's like inflicting a wound on yourself, but not getting the first aid kit to patch yourself up, and then wondering, why am I bleeding out? Like, yeah, no duh, Green Bay, no duh, Aaron Rodgers is mad at you. He is so sick of this organization doing nothing. And again, like I said before, I can understand the salary cap, but they don't have that excuse when you look at what Kansas City is doing for Mahomes. You look at what Tampa Bay is doing for Brady. You even look at, I know the last like year or two, man, not, or the last year specifically wasn't the best, but for how long did Belichick and them always like agree and find a way to mesh with the cap, mix it up, get some pieces in, even if it was just for a year or two? That's the problem with the Packers. They don't even believe for like the 1 or 2 year investments, which I know Julio Jones probably is like 2 years at most. But you're telling me that's 2 years of, even at his worst, a top 10 receiver in the NFL with A.J. Brown in Tennessee, who's going to be ascending. And had it been to Green Bay, Devontae Adams is there. Like, I just find it so ridiculous. So ridiculous that Green Bay didn't go for it. I'm more upset with them even than I am with Baltimore. Baltimore is just like, yeah, like I said, I don't understand how they couldn't have come up with a better package. But Green Bay, I'm just disappointed in because like we know when if Rodgers is starting, that first round pick is going to be low. Let's be real here. Like unless Jordan Love is going to be the new starter going forward, good God, that first round pick is going to be pretty high up there. So yeah, I'm on your side. It's just another situation where the Packers fail Aaron Rodgers. But let's not be too surprised here. They've been doing that for well over a decade at this point. So yeah,
All right. Final thoughts, gentlemen?
Tennessee got a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. Dame, any final thoughts?
nope.
Okay. Kind of you scared me for a sec. I thought we lost connection again. All right. We move on to the NBA world where a little someone on the Dallas Mavericks is a little frustrated that he's not getting the same attention as someone else. Quote, but Porzingis has been frustrated, often feeling more like an afterthought than a co-star as Doncic dominates the ball and the spotlight, end quote. Before I get to Dame on this, because I'm pretty sure Dame has a lot to say, let me start off by saying 2/3 of this podcast is Knicks fans, so there's a little bit of saltiness towards KP, especially the way he went out. We've talked about this before, but the way he went out was kind of bitchy. Let's just kind of focus on his stink with the Mavs. So Luka Doncic is a generational talent, of course, and they went to the playoffs last year and this year, playing both the Clippers. Spoiler alert: they lost to the Clippers in both series. They just recently lost to the Clippers in 7 games. Porzingis, I'm gonna read you his stats for this series, guys. Bear with me. Jurg, Porzingis averaged 13.1 points per game, 0.7 blocks per game,
Oh,
5.4 rebounds per game. Overall field goal percentage was 47.2, so I guess that was decent, but 29.6 from 3-point range.
ooh.
Yeah, so Doncic did his thing, and man, I predicted, I was like, you know what, it's not the bubble. Doncic can't average 40, 20, and 20, and bro, he kind of almost did, so I'm going to take a huge L on that. Freezing cold takes on my end. There was, I guess, from the KP defenders, there was a little bit of, well, Carlisle isn't utilizing him the right way. It's kind of just like he's just having there as like a spacing the floor type of dude. Just shoot the three basically and let Luka just kind of do the thing. Yeah, it's just the Mavs play this style of basketball where just kind of Luka operates and everyone else just shoots threes. To put that in, to like summarize that in the simplest of terms, I'll play devil's advocate in saying that I get the part where Carlisle isn't utilizing him the best way possible. Okay, I'll give you that somewhat. I will say this. why are people acting like Porzingis has like this innate ability to do other things for himself? Like he can't post up smaller dudes. We've seen that. He's not that strong. And he doesn't have the same lateral quickness as he did in New York because of all the injuries. So, like, I get it, Carlisle isn't utilizing him the best way possible, but it's like we can't act like Porzingis can create for himself that easily. That people are saying, like, man, Porzingis, give him the ball. I'm like, okay, give Porzingis the ball. What can he do, though? Be realistic about this. Like, Porzingis cannot create for himself. You get a physical Porzingis, he's limited. He can't do anything. Like, when he was posting, he tried to post up on Kawhi, and it was just laughable at certain points, to be honest. But he just takes really bad 3-pointers as well. Like there was like a possession. I mean, it's pretty like you could see it on Twitter. But there was a possession where they had numbers, and he just instead of just passing it and just taking advantage of the numbers, I think it was like a 3-on-2 or 2-on-1. My dude just shot from 3, like he just catapulted. It's like, bro, what are you doing? And like 0.7 blocks per game. I'm pretty surprised at that because I'm like, oh, you could at least average at least 1 per game, you know? So I was just, he's not a great perimeter defender. I don't expect him to be that. He was never a great perimeter defender in New York. I know I commented on the lateral quickness not being the same thing, but he was never a great perimeter defender. But he was a good rim protector in New York. And I think still at 7'3", you should at least be an average, shot blocker. But he was averaging 0.7 and just, I don't know. I think the thing is, like, you cannot expect. I get you want to like more of a bigger role on the offense. That's fine, but Luka's generational, man. You cannot be upset that Luka's getting more of the spotlight because this dude is one of the best shot makers in the NBA. Like what Luka's doing is absurd in my opinion. So if you're more upset about Luka getting more attention, that's on you. Like Porzingis has always had these issues where he's kind of been a diva. And I get it. Like he was used to like having the spotlight in New York. Clearly didn't know how to act with that spotlight. But I don't know. It's just KP fans. Like I get it. Just to summarize it up, I get it. You want him to have more of a role on offense, but you need to be real with yourself in saying that in thinking that Porzingis just can't do that much on offense besides like shoot over people. That's just my take on it without sounding too harsh because I'll leave that up to Damien. But before we go to Damien, Jurg, what do you have to say about it?
So it's like this is just really interesting how this is all broken down. Like I
who
don't
won the
understand.
trade, Jurg? Who won the trade? Say
it. The Knicks won that deal by a mile now.
Yes,
like it's official because especially like I don't know if you're Dallas, like if he really does have a problem here. Now here's my thing. I think there's a chance that maybe some of it could have been taken out of context to an extent. Like I don't think Porzingis is that blind to the fact I think he understands that it's Luka's team. Like I don't think he's arguing that he should be the number one. But at the same time here, you need to understand like Luka's the damn alpha on the team. Like that's just a matter of fact. He's going to be, if he's not already, one of the definitive 5 best players in the game. Hell, he's going to be top 3 player. He may even at one point be considered the top player by many. Like that's how special he is. Guys like that, you secede to them 10 times out of 10. Like there is no doubt. Dwayne Wade ceded to LeBron James when LeBron came to Miami. Hey, it's your team now. I'm just going to support you. And I just find it wild that Dallas, like any young player that's been with Luka so far, they just can't seem to get that through their head. Like Luka's rookie season when DSJ was still there were reports that DSJ didn't like the fact that Luka was essentially being the new point guard on the team. And it's like, dude, you got to understand, like, he's just better than you. Like, come on now.
Right.
Like, if you can't understand that he's going to be the guy, that's on you. And you don't deserve to be on the team if you don't get that. And now it's the same thing with Porzingis. Like, if he really can't get it through his head, like, I think Carlisle hasn't used him to the best of his abilities. And I think when Cuban, I forget when it was, maybe earlier this week or late last week, when he talked about, it was just after the Game 7 loss where people were asking about Carlisle's job security. And he was like, grass ain't always greener. Yeah, but sometimes it could be more innovative and younger. And it may take a little bit, but, I love Rick Carlisle. I respect him as a coach. He is a coach I honestly would want to model myself after because he's just an absolutely phenomenal, leader amongst teams. He was obviously the coach for the championship. Like, you can't say enough good about him, especially for what he's done being, I think he's the head of the Coaches Association, if I'm not mistaken. Like, no one will ever say a negative thing about Rick Carlisle, right? But at the same time, at some point, you need to take advantage of your superstars. Not prime because he's not there yet, but you need to take advantage of when you have superstars. And I could think that maybe a different coach that has a different idea in mind to how to use Porzingis a little bit more effectively than he already has. Like I do believe that a few differences here and there could help a little bit. But you already said the stats, Chris. 29% from three. What was it? 13 points per game in the first round against the Clippers
Yeah,
this year?
that's just inexcusable.
Yeah, like no coaching situation, no whatever can excuse that. Like people were talking about last year in the bubble, like if Porzingis was fully healthy, could the Mavs have actually upset last year's
No.
Clippers? No, I'm not saying that, but some people were brought
No,
up
no,
the
I
question.
know.
And I'm just like, if even for a second, some people thought that you should have performed this season. You can't use injuries as an excuse this time. Like, everyone has to deal with nagging injuries. AD and LeBron have dealt with that the entire year. So you just need to power through it, my guy. Like, I know it's a meme. I know this ain't original, but damn, someone took the playoff P nickname away from Paul
Oh, he
George
did.
real quick. Like the baton was passed, and Porzingis may run with it for the rest of his career. Because through 2 playoff appearances for himself, he's done absolutely nothing to support Luka. Luka by himself is the reason why the Mavericks got to 6 last year, and by himself is the fact they even had a chance to somehow win this series. They need to I do agree they need to improve the scheming, they need to improve the offense. All of that I can get on board with. If he had said something to that tune like we need to get we need to change up some things. Like if he had said it more generically, I usually hate generic speak, but if he had said it more generically, it's like, okay, I can understand. Like you could see the point, right? We would actually be agreeing with Porzingis. But now with the rest of this, it's like, nah, man, I can't get on board with that. And honestly, if I'm Cuban, you got to find a way to trade that dude. You can't have a guy there that, you got to understand. You bow to the alpha. You kneel to the alpha. Luka's the alpha, point blank. Like there's no argument to that. So that's how I see it. I think Dallas should consider. I'm sure they have, but I think they need to ramp up the idea of trading him. Maybe you don't get great value back, but I don't know, man. Are you going to trust him to rebuild his value next season? So that that's how I see it. This just really rubs me the wrong way.
No, I agree. And before Dame you go, I want to respond to that. It's just like he's getting paid $30 million a year. So I don't like you. It's the type of contract where you have to basically attach a pick at this point, and they gave away all their picks to who, Jurg? Just tell me, remind me.
The New York Knickerbockers.
That's right. We got all their picks. Like you would have to attach a Jalen Brunson essentially, and I think Jalen Brunson is very good. I think he's an underrated player in the NBA, right? And and I think the Mavericks, for the most part, have a lot of players who defer to him because you have to essentially. Like everyone knows their role. I think besides Porzingis, and you brought up Dennis Smith Jr., great example. I think it's these dudes who have ego issues. That's the problem. Like I don't understand. Where do you think KP where can KP go where he would be an alpha? Name me one place, right? I know one team like what I think before like the bitch issues kind of were revealed. The Spurs had like interest in him, and they have like infatuation with the European players, but like the Spurs don't deal with that with those character issues. Like you need to be a certain breed to play on the Spurs. And now
Right.
that Porzingis is kind of like showing his true like ego, I think Knicks fans knew about it before when the trade happened because there was like this whole thing with his brother and just like demanding these roster changes to the front office and just the way Porzingis would talk about like tell other players to not come to New York. I'm just like, oh, we saw the writing on the wall. It just took a while for it to be public because it was always Knicks for clicks. It's like Knicks don't know what they're doing. But now you see it. And I don't know. I just think it's going to be hard to trade him. They do need to trade him because Mavs are kind of stuck at this point because you need to
Yeah.
essentially get better. And there is talent. He is talented, but like, how do you get better at this point? And like, you would need to trade Porzingis. Unfortunately, though, it's hard to trade Porzingis because that contract is
Yeah.
albatross at this point.
I
So
have a mock trade. I actually do have a mock trade in mind, but I want Dame to go first because we've talked about it enough. I want Dame to go first.
okay, Dame, go ahead.
What he has.
Yeah, let me just start off saying 2 things. When me and Chris used to do this YouTube thing, me and him made a bet about Porzingis averaging double-digit rebounds. You owe me a Christina sandwich because he never did. I'm just reminding you and the public that to put you on the spot.
You got hurt. He got hurt.
Whenever you decide to come outside, I'll be waiting for my sandwich. Second thing is, I know you aren't. Second thing is, I know I have a lot of I have a lot of sports takes, whether they're good or bad, and sometimes I'm wrong,
A lot
sometimes
of
I'm
bad. A lot of
right,
bad.
and a lot of right.
Oh my god.
Anyways, but I personally don't think I was ever more right about any take than I have been on the Porzingis trade, because from the second there was rumors about him being traded, I wanted him out. I was excited and I was at work. I remember I was at work. The trade went down, and from the second I saw all the details and he was out of here, not for 1 second that I think it was a bad trade. I was always all for it. A lot of people around me were always questioning it. They were against it. They were like, "How can Knicks do this?" Like, I don't know if this is a good trade to trade away your franchise player like that, but not me. I was always for it. I knew we could get all the cap relief. We got draft picks. We mostly got rid of him, who's a drama queen, who's injury prone, and is going to get paid $30 million a year for 5 years. So I knew from the start it was a good trade, and obviously now everybody sees it. Everyone's on my train. I'm the conductor. I'm driving it. Everyone
Just fucking
understands.
get to the point, bro.
ev-
Jesus.
Everyone understands why I was. I have to explain why I'm right, since you said I have a lot of bad takes. So I'm showboating here. Anyways, obviously this is a bad situation for the Mavericks. This is why I was scared the Knicks were going to be in if they kept KP. But now the Mavericks don't know what they're going to do with him. Who's really going to take him? I saw the Wizards, and I guess Wizards, I can see why that would be a good spot if Bradley
Ugh.
Beal asked for a trade out. Say Bradley Beal asked for a trade out, like, and then he lists the Mavericks as one of them. Why not buy low on Porzingis? Maybe
He
get another draft
sucks.
pick. I get it, but I'm really giving you a situation here.
All
If
right.
they want to pair Bradley Beal with Luka Doncic, like, you buy low on Porzingis, maybe you get a Brunson with it. You get another draft pick or two. Obviously it's not going to be for a while since the Knicks have their next two, but that's a nice little package there if you want to truly go for a rebuild. Um, Other than that, I don't really see any other team that's going to trade for him. Why would you want him? He clearly can't stay healthy. Like, it's not even the ACL. It's always something different now. He clearly has a bitch-ass attitude. This started with New York when there was rumors that he didn't want KD to come in free agency because he didn't want to be overshined. And now you're seeing it with Luka Doncic, the same thing. So you have the injury history. You have the prima donna attitude. And then the performance, too. Like, he's not that good anymore. Like, he's not averaging 20-plus points a night. He's 7'3". He's not giving you the double-digit rebounds that he's supposed to be giving you. On defense, he's not good either. He's fouling more than he's playing good defense. So overall, it's an absolute disaster for the Mavs. I truly don't know what they're going to do. I think they're going to have to keep him because no one else wants him. But they're going to have to, like, talk to him, sit him down or something, and help him realize that he's not that guy.
No, I agree. I'm pretty sure the Wizards could definitely get a better package for Beal than Porzingis,
Yeah, find
Brunson,
me
and
one.
like and okay, I'll come up with the trade machine right now. Give me like 2 minutes. Like Porzingis, Brunson, and a future first rounder that probably won't be high because you have Luka Doncic.
Well, it would be
Gets done for
multiple future first. Like it'd be like I think a lot of people don't understand. I've had this discussion with like friends of mine before. Like with the Harden and Drew Holiday deals have set everything awry. Like to get a high caliber guard now, it's gonna be several first round picks. It's not
It
just
has
gonna
to be
two.
4 and then some swaps.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, Dame. Like I get it. You just want to bring an example, but that does not get. And like I heard, apparently a team with the high odds to trade for Porzingis. I don't know how legitimate this is, but I read the Celtics, which I mean I don't know how that's.
No, I'm not reading anything into the Celtics. I've read into that for years now. I'm done. No.
Okay, I agree with you, but even the Celtics, you're not better than Tatum. You're not better than Brown. It's like I guess a Kemba KP swap, but like I don't think that solves anyone's issues for either side. But I mean, I guess it's to get out of the Porzingis contract.
Brad
Which,
Stevens, I'll just say this: Brad Stevens would really be following in the steps of Danny Ainge there because that is a deal that has a lot of hype and is absolutely useless.
yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know. I'm glad that this is kind of in the clear now. Like, yeah, Damien guessed right. Was it a little like?
Guessed right. Whoa. I was never a KP fan in the first place, and I was always saying that we should not re-sign him, and I was happy with the trade.
But no,
This is
you
not a
were
guess.
off the KP train like before the injuries, before like the prima donna attitude. You just didn't see it in him. So like,
Okay,
you
yes,
can't
but
you
that's
can't
not
play
a
the
guess.
hindsight is 2020 thing.
It's not a
That
guess.
was a guess.
It's not a guess. I knew this was in him. I knew this was what he was.
Oh my god.
I'm glad I
whatever.
wasn't the only one because when he was drafted, I didn't understand the hype his rookie season. I saw right through him.
I
Like, yeah,
didn't either, but then
he's
I was
never
proven
gonna
a
be a
little
number one
wrong. Like,
guy.
he showed potential, but then as time went on, like, he became inconsistent. You saw the bitch ass attitude in him when he was sitting out like little games here and there for stupid shit. Like, you
Right.
could see that. You could, like, me watching every Knicks game, I can see it. Like, his stupid ass attitude and how inconsistent he was. How he would show up multiple games, but then not show up other games. And like, his defense was soft. He was soft. He didn't get the rebounds. Like, I saw what was coming.
Look, I think fans really fall in love with homegrown talent. I think we're all a victim of it. And KP was like the first one in a while that like kind of showed that promise. Right? Like, was he overrated? Absolutely. And I think Knicks fans will like admit that. They're just like, oh, he's on Jokic's level. We had rose tinted glasses on, and because like I was part of that train because I was like, I love homegrown talent like that, and he had that underdog mentality until he didn't anymore. And Dame, don't even deny it, bro. Carmelo got to him a little bit. The
I'm
Carmelo
sure he
ness,
did.
like that's his fault. He looked, and then his brother got involved. But whatever. It's a bad situation for the Mavs. I don't know how they get out of it. If they do, then props to Cuban. It doesn't look good, but he's kind of a piece of trash. He's overrated. And I don't know, there's still people that me and Dame know that are KP fans still that just deny the facts. But who knows? Once like you fall in love with someone, they're probably not going to change their perspective on it. You just become like a little bit of
Yep.
like a defender, I guess, of that person. You
Yep.
become what's the word for a Jurg? An apologist?
A
Yeah.
bitch.
All right. Well, yeah, that too. Subs. We won't mention any names. But enough about Porzingis. We move on to our main event, which is, I guess, a discussion about the semifinals in the NBA playoffs. West Coast, we got the Jazz versus the Clippers. It is currently 1-0. Game 2 will be tonight. This will be released tomorrow, so it's either going to be 2-0 or 1-1. And then we have the Suns versus the Nuggets. The Suns are up 2-0. And on the East Coast, we have the Hawks and the Sixers, which is currently 1-1. And the Nets versus the Bucks, which is 2-0 Nets. Game 3 is on right now, so who knows? It'll either be 3-0 or 2-1. And the Bucks are up 8. They were up 21 at one point, but because of the Nets, the lead is trimmed. So start off with the East because I think it's it's the least interesting. I mean, I don't even know at this point. You know what? Let's just start off with the East. Yeah, actually, it's now a 6-point game between the Nets and the Bucks. So we'll start off with the Hawks versus the Sixers. The Hawks took game 1, and I don't even want to say they stole it because they just flat out outplayed the Sixers, man. Like, they were blowing them out for like the first 3.5 quarters, and the Sixers came back and they just made it like a 2-point game, but it was a little bit too much too late. Yeah, Trae Young played really well. Bogdanovich hit shots.
John Collins was skying up.
John Collins was solid. That Hawks team, they proved me wrong, man. Like, they're a really good team. They're a really good team. They can make shots. They're the baby Warriors in my opinion. Kevin Huerter was hitting crazy shots, but to the Sixers, Joel Embiid did his thing. Like, Joel Embiid's not even 100%, and he's still dominating. So props to him. Their defense was very suspect the first game. Doc Rivers' rotations were very weird because there's like a 6-minute stretch where he didn't have Simmons, Embiid, or Harris on the court, and then the Hawks just took advantage completely. So really bad coaching decisions on his end, which is what I think contributed to the game 1 loss. So yeah, that's, I guess, the Hawks won game 1, and then game 2, it got a little tight in like the middle of the game, and then I think the Sixers just took over. It was the Shake Milton takeover, but they corrected their wrongs. Doc Rivers had at least one of their top 3 on the court at all times. Ben Simmons, they did a really good job defensively on Trae Young. He had 21, but he was like 6 for 16. But Ben Simmons had him in the gulag. Ben Simmons got a lot of hate for his like 4 points. I don't remember the other stats, but he got 4 points. He was getting like crucified on the offensive end, and I get it, but like, his defense was really important in game 2, man. And it was at the time where it was kind of like tied, or they're like up 2, and then he was like deflecting alley-oops that the Hawks were trying to pull off, guarding Trae Young. So I got to give Ben Simmons credit. He didn't give you like a lot on the offensive end, but I think his defense was just as, if not more important, especially when the game was kind of going back and forth. So no Ben Simmons slander on my end. Dame, what do you think about this series so far?
Well, I was shocked that Atlanta won the first game, especially since Embiid came back and he really looked pretty healthy. I know he had a monster game. But then, as expected, the Philly came out one game too. I think Philly's gonna win this series. I think they're gonna win the six. I don't see them winning 4 games straight, especially going to Atlanta. I think Atlanta's gonna get one of these games in Atlanta, because they're home and stuff. This is all considering that Embiid is gonna be fully healthy. Obviously, if he gets hurt in any way, my prediction changes. But I'm expecting him to be fully healthy. I think they're going in six. Probably losing to Atlanta, but I think Embiid, Simmons, and Harris are just too dominant for this Atlanta Hawks team. I know Atlanta could shoot the lights out. That's why I'm giving them a game. But Embiid and Simmons, I think, just going to dominate the paint, paint and the pace of the game. And I don't think Atlanta has anything to match those. So
Shout out Matisse Thybulle, by the way, on the defensive end.
yep.
But also, bro, my heart drops when I see like Embiid play, especially because like I know the consequences of like an awkward fall at this point. So I'm just so scared, to be honest. But if you see the way Embiid's been moving, he's been moving so safely. Like he's been so conservative with how he moves his body. Like anytime he does a Euro step, bro, like I get goosebumps. I'm just like, oh god, please just be careful, man. Yeah, Jurg, what do you got?
I just want to point out one thing that you mentioned, Chris, with people trying to crucify Ben Simmons. In that game, too, Embiid did have the 40 points. He was a plus 14. Ben Simmons, only 4 points, but with the 7 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and all the defense he played, he was a plus 10. So he scored 36 less points, but was still a plus player and only 4 less than Embiid. So let that go to show you to anybody that wants to doubt what his value is. Like you said, him and Matisse Thybulle, when it was the most important possessions of the game that they had to lock down, the two of them did so, and that helped extend the lead for Philly and win that game. I'm on the same side as you guys. I think we all agree Philly is going to end up winning the series as long as Embiid is still healthy. The only reason I see this going to 7 somehow is if for whatever reason, I wouldn't be surprised because it's Doc Rivers, if Philly leads 3-2 going into game 6 in Atlanta, I could somehow see Elton Brand and Doc trying to talk to Embiid about him resting that game 6, and Embiid would be like, hell no, I am playing this game. Unless Embiid gets hurt again or they rest him for a game for some reason. I don't know why they would, but you got to expect the unexpected sometimes in the playoffs. But I ultimately believe that this is Philly series. It'll end up being in 6. But again, like, all the credit in the world to Atlanta. When a lot of people didn't believe they would even make it past the Knicks, they beat them in 5, and then they captured that first game in Philadelphia. That's pretty good for this young Hawks team. Like you said, Chris, it's funny because literally when they drafted Trae Young, the organization's motto was, he's going to be our Steph Curry. We are going to build up this team. They are literally the mini Warriors. Now, will they have the success? No. But in terms of their top guy being a smaller point guard but could shoot from like 40 feet out, surrounding him with various other players of skill sets and athleticisms, Kevin Herter being a sniper, Bogdanovich being one of their just pure outside shooters. This Atlanta Hawks team, I don't know what it is like that. This is for a future episode, but like just a 1 or 2 more pieces, man. And this team is going to be very dangerous in future playoff runs. So the fact that they're getting this experience is nice. But yeah, we all know this belongs to Philly. As long as the big fella is healthy, I always say this. If you got the best player on the floor in the series, you give yourself a better chance to win. And while Trae Young's been outstanding so far, Joel Embiid is the best player, bar none, that's out there.
All right. Yeah, I agree with all your points, guys. Should we move on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we move on to the other East semifinals matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks against the Nets. The Nets are up 2-0. Man, it's difficult to talk about this series because I think we're all pulling for the Bucks on this podcast. I don't care if it sounds biased, but we expected this to be the series of the semifinals, regardless of the conference. We expected this to be the best series. Man, has it not been the best series because Brooklyn has dominated both games at home. Like, you expect the Bucks to at least put up a fight, man. Like, we all predicted, Giannis is going to go nuclear, man. They don't have that defense to stop him. Like, yeah, the Nets would probably win, but, like, it would have to be, like, close, and they'd have to work for it. Nope. Giannis has underperformed. Chris Middleton has been non-existent. It's so difficult because, like, the first game, I think it was good for, like, 1/2, and then like the Nets completely took over. The Bucks just couldn't hit a shot. So I'm like, okay, no way the Bucks are just gonna hit like 6 3-pointers in total. Like, they'll pick it up. Second game, they lost by even more. They lost by like 40, I think. And it's disappointing to see because, like, Giannis is the one that has like that side to him where he's just like, you know what, no F's given. We're just gonna I'm just gonna take this and just like rip your throat in the process. And it's just like no one can stop him. And I gotta give credit to Blake Griffin because he's done a decent job. Blake Griffin with the biggest ski mask in the NBA, but he has been doing a decent job on Giannis because he's been being physical with him. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it is Blake Griffin, and then it's Giannis. Like Giannis is like his physique is insane. He's the type of guy that just gets there without any difficulty. But we know there is a formula to stop Giannis, but I never thought the Nets had the bodies to replicate that formula, kind of what the Raptors did in the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals. So I gotta give props to the Nets and their defense, but man, there's been no heart from the Bucks, and that sounds really cliche and corny, but like it's the best thing I could say right now that kind of exemplifies their style and how they're kind of approaching this series. Jurg, what do you think?
Wow, you know what, Milwaukee? You had your playoff success, you got your revenge, and now it seems like you're just gonna lie down and die, huh? Huh? That must be fun. Hope the memes were worth it, boys. Enjoy getting absolutely slapped by KD and Kyrie. No Harden, by the way, in Game 2.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. Go ahead, Jurg. Go ahead.
Oh, that Game 2 was cathartic in so many ways for me. It was just so enjoyable. I'm not for the whole playoffs, but I might take my boys up on the offer of being a Nets fan just for this round of the playoffs, just to enjoy Milwaukee getting slapped. That would be nice. But okay.
How did they not win one game? There's no Harden. I said that they had to win game 1 to have a chance in this series. Yep. They didn't win game 1. I'm like, all right, well, you have to win game 2 now. And there's no Harden, right? Because they prepared for a James Harden the first game. He kind of left after like the first 30 seconds. So I'm like, for sure he's not going to be there for the second game because it's a groin injury. It's like you can't F around with that. And then they got slapped up. Go ahead, Jurg. You have your fun.
It's the Mike Budenholzer curse. Like, I'm telling you, people, you just don't understand. Mike Budenholzer is not a playoff coach. Like, he's not, unless his team is more supremely talented than the other, it's not going to be an easy playoff series by any stretch of the imagination. Not to say this was going to be that, but you could tell that a more, playoff battle-tested coach, properly battle-tested, not just whenever you lose, you get beaten 4 or 5 games by LeBron or Miami every single time. Like, I'm not surprised that happened because, like you said, Chris, on one end it was no Harden, but then on the other end it was no heart, no urgency, no pushing of things. And this is where a coach that's a little bit more fiery would have gotten into his guys' faces. Like, and right now, let's just say for all intents and purposes, as of us recording this, they have nearly blown their double-digit lead they've had here in Game 3. Yeah. And I'm telling you, like, a real team wouldn't have blown the lead. They would have held it from start to finish the entire time. I know the Nets are talented, but there's absolutely no excuse for this. I was actually someone who said Blake Griffin, I think, was going to be great with the Nets, and he has been. But prime Blake Griffin wasn't even a good defensive player. And this Blake Griffin is doing a job on Giannis. I just do not understand what is going on in this series. Milwaukee is the last team, of course, depending on Embiid's health, but Milwaukee was the team that we all assumed could at least begin the challenge for the Nets because there's some length there. Holiday will bother either Kyrie or Harden. Middleton will stand in front of the other one and try to contest shots. And then Giannis and KD should cancel each other out because, yes, KD is going to get his 25 to 30, but Giannis can do that as well, just in a different manner. But I guess like KD said, don't ever compare Giannis to me ever again. And I guess there's some credence to that because this, like KD is just proving that this team is just that much better. That's just how it works. And I am not, I don't want to say I'm not shocked, but just after how they looked in Game 2, if the Bucks win a game, I'll be surprised because that is the body. I'm a big body language and like chemistry kind of guy, and just the body language they showed me in Game 2 was like, yo, they're out of it now. Like, I hope they prove me wrong because I just want the entertainment value at least. But man, that was just such a disappointing performance that we saw out of them in Game 2. Dame, I'm sure you agree. Like this series has not played out in any way that we would have thought it would have gone.
Nah, not at all. Like, I thought the Nets were gonna win Game 1 for first game, like at home and stuff. But I did expect the Bucks to take Game 2, especially knowing that Harden's out. Like, maybe the first game you kind of like, oh, Harden's out. Like, let me lollygag through this game. But like Game 2, he was out. Like, you should have game planned for that. And they got absolutely embarrassed. Like, it wasn't even close. I don't know how that's possible. But now I watched the first quarter of Game 3 and the Bucks are absolutely dominating. Giannis is doing his thing, and I'm just watching Giannis. Like, I don't know why he can't just bully these guys at every single possession. Like they're not playing the Heat, they're not playing Kawhi. Like you're playing the Nets. You have Blake Griffin on you. Like you're stronger than him, you're faster than him, you're taller than him, you're better than him. Like you should be able to dominate each and every time you get the ball, all games at all facets of the court. But he just hasn't been able to do it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like a mental thing. I don't know if
It
I'm
is.
seeing some. I don't know. I don't know if I'm seeing something that. I mean, I don't know if I'm not seeing something that they're doing when I'm watching these games, but I don't get it. But I fully expect the Nets to win this series. Obviously, it took both these games. They might even take Game 3 now because the Bucks blew it in the second quarter. I think they have 3 points in like the first 10 minutes of the second quarter, something like that. But anyways, I think the Nets are gonna win this series easily. Might end in 5, at the most 6, but I think it's gonna end in 5. I'll give the Bucks one game because I'm nice, but yeah, I just have the Nets dominating the series after what I saw in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and for disclosure, I never thought Giannis was better than KD. Like, I think there's a big
Nah,
gap between them. Like, I think there's
yeah,
like a massive gap between them. To be honest, it's just I don't know. And Dame, to your point, I do think it's a mental thing. Like Giannis, I think he's like really tough, but like when it comes down to the thick of it, is just he just melts, bro. And the Bucks, you're not gonna beat the Nets. If they win this series, I will be shocked, shocked. And this like the Bucks need to figure something out because I mean the Nets are gonna stay like this
Yeah.
for next year at least until like contracts start to come up and all that.
Yeah.
So and then you got Philly. Obviously Philly's not not as unbeatable as I think Brooklyn is, but they're still, you know, they're still a team. They're still a team to beat. But also the Nets. I mean the Bucks. The Bucks are kind of stuck with his team,
Yeah.
right? So if you're not winning soon, you're gonna be stuck in mediocrity for a while.
If
Because
they
like
get swept, Budenholzer's gone. Like
he's
that,
gone.
yeah,
He's
there's
gone. Yeah, yeah.
zero excuse
But
that they should
like
get swept.
there's they can't make roster moves. You traded the whole farm for Drew Holiday, which at the point, at that point, I was like, that might be a little too much for Drew Holiday. I mean, you get Holiday to neutralize the Kyries of the world. That's not happening. So, like, you would hope that Holiday neutralizes Kyrie. So it's just like, okay, well, maybe this could like just be KD that we have to focus on, right? And it's like, no one can stop KD, but you at least got to make it, tough for him. But nothing, man. Legitimately nothing. But yeah, I don't know. I just hopefully they figure it out. Probably not. If this is 3-0, then it's done. If they need to win this one to have at least a glimmer of hope. So who knows? We'll probably look like idiots tomorrow. So yeah, we move over to the West Coast. Start with the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets. Suns are up 2-0. They have blown out the Nuggets, not like Nets versus Bucks type, but they've blown them out to a point where just that they've won comfortably. Sheesh, man, I thought this would at least be 1-1 and a little bit more competitive because I'm like, okay, like yeah, Aiton's great and all, but he can't stop Jokic. But man, there's something wrong with the Nuggets, bro. Like I expect, like obviously Murray not being there is a big thing, but still, I think having Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. still hasn't found his like rhythm. They've been overwhelmed, to be honest, and you got to give credit to the Suns defense for kind of making it tough on them. But yeah, I mean, Jokic still does his thing, but the Michael Porter Jr. has been a big disappointment. And Michael Porter Jr. is the guy that had to step up to the number 2 role ever since Murray was injured. And then Aaron Gordon too is just it's hard to explain, but I'm disappointed in this series too because I'm like, okay, this could be fun. Like the Nuggets and Suns, it
Right.
sounds like an evenly matched series that could be really fun, but it hasn't been fun. It's been kind of just Phoenix all over. And like I think we're all happy that Chris Paul and Devin Booker are finding success right now.
Yeah.
But from a fan's perspective, like a general fan's perspective, it's been disappointing because like I'm thinking about the match we could have had between the Suns and the Blazers, and we've seen like the regular season game that they had a few weeks prior. That could have been a series, Damian Lillard versus Devin Booker, but we didn't get that. But still, I mean, I still think that the Nuggets aren't completely out of it because I think they could possibly win both at home and even the series going into Phoenix, but they have to win Game 3 obviously. You don't want to avoid going down 0-3, but yeah, another disappointment. Dame, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely disappointing. I thought these are 2 very evenly matched teams, but after watching the first 2 games, I was obviously wrong. Chris Paul looks like he's healthy again after that injury he had against the Lakers. Devin Booker is turning into an absolute superstar, and Jokic just looks like an MVP that has nobody next to him to help him. Michael Porter has gone cold. all these role players aren't showing up the way they did in the first round. I definitely would have rather watched the Blazers go against the Suns. It would have been super entertaining with Damian Lillard and McCollum going back against Devin Booker and Chris Paul, but this is what I have for now. The Nuggets want any chance to win the series. They have to win these next 2 games. They can't split it. They can't go down 3-1. This isn't last year against the Clippers. The Suns aren't the Clippers, and this isn't the bubble. Like, you cannot go down 3-1 to the Suns team. This Suns team, led by Chris Paul. So they're gonna need to win these next 2 games. Do I think they will? No. I do think they'll split. End up being 3-1, and then I think the Suns are gonna close it out in 5 at home.
I think I always thought this was the series that the Nuggets were going to struggle with, no matter who the opponent would have ended up being, whether it was the Suns or the Lakers. Like, this was always going to be that series where they missed Jamal Murray the most, and I think you could tell. I think there's a chance it could have been 1-1, at least with how close game 1 was in theory, and Jamal Murray would have been a reason because he could go shot for shot with Devin Booker. And like you said, Chris, like with like Jokic and Ayton, like that's a solid battle. Like, Ayton has held his own, but we know Jokic, like, he's officially been named the MVP. All 3 of us got that. So, we're great. But you have Jokic and Ayton. Jokic is going to get the better most nights, at least scoring wise. And then he's been fine. Maybe not MVP level, but he's been more than fine up to this point. Like, you can't pin this on him because his teammates are not there for him. And that just ultimately comes down to Jamal Murray not being there, because Michael Porter Jr., again, he was pretty good against Portland, but I think against Portland it was easier for him because he didn't have a Jay Crowder harassing him. Like I said, Portland trading away Gary Trent Jr. was going to hurt them on the perimeter. Look how Michael Porter Jr. looked against Portland, and now look how he is against Phoenix when there's an actual small forward guarding him and not like a 6'4" guard/forward. So that's just how it is. The Suns team is well coached. Monty Williams has been outstanding, and I think Mike Malone himself, he's frustrated. Like, he would probably admit that Monty Williams has outcoached him to this point. So it's just all about finding the magic. Chris, I'm on your side. I think Denver can win both these at home, but I don't think there's enough on this team to where when it goes back to game 6, I think Phoenix is going to hold the 3-2 lead. I think they're going to close it out. I always thought the Suns were going to win this series, but like these 2 games, like they just they put exclamation to that point where it's like, yeah, to poor Denver, like 100%. It would have been nice to see, Aiden and Jokic, Murray and Jokic going up against Booker, Aiden, and CP3 being the general, and Malone trying to deal with that, but obviously, we're not going to get that, and we are getting, for the first time since 2010, a deep playoff run by the Suns, and hey, good for them, honestly.
Yeah, no, shout out the Suns, man. But yeah, I agree. We move on over to the LA Clippers versus the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are currently up 1-0. This will change after tonight because this will be released tomorrow, as I said. But game 1 happened. The Jazz won. The Clippers honestly had a really good first half, and then the Jazz just exploded in the second half, just hitting all their threes. Donovan Mitchell went nuclear. Paul George became what everyone knows as playoff P. Kawhi did decent for his standards, but it wasn't enough. I think fatigue. I mean, they had like 1 day of rest technically after after the 7-game series of the Mavericks.
Yeah.
But that's no excuse. Like, this is the playoffs. This is where you get. This is where the big boys, step up. So, Kawhi did okay, essentially. But, man, the Clippers just could not hit a shot in that second half. But they lost by 3, so the encouraging thing is that, like, okay, it was a winnable game. Is Donovan Mitchell going to have, like, another 45-point-plus performance? I don't necessarily think so. I think they'll make adjustments. I think Kawhi will guard him a little bit more. Because I think Donovan Mitchell just ate up Luke Kennard, in my opinion. And everyone's opinion, actually. But I think the size advantage, Rudy Gobert being there, is going to obviously hurt the Clippers. Ibaka needs to come back at some point to at least make this like a series. I think it's going to be a series regardless, but like for the Clippers to have like a shot to win this series, I think you're going to need Ibaka. I don't know if PG and Kawhi will be enough to beat this like high scoring Jazz team, especially with Paul George not being, him being 1/4 of what he isn't going to help, especially. And Kawhi will eventually get fatigued, right? So who knows? Marcus Morris very disappointing in the first game, but I think the Clippers will tie it up. I could sound like a clown tomorrow morning, but we'll see. I think they could tie it up. No Mike Conley again for game 2. Clippers need to take advantage. I won't write them off if they go down 0-2, but it'll definitely be a red alert because this isn't the Mavs. This is the Jazz. They have a lot of ammo. So who knows? It's going to be hard. I think I'll have a better perspective of how the series will go after game 2, in my opinion. But disappointing performance from the Clippers, but I think they can bounce back just because they had a lot of factors going into the game one. But hey, the Jazz won without Mike Conley, so it evens out. So,
Yeah.
Dame, what do you think?
I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep during that game. I saw the Clippers were up big, and then I woke up the next morning to see the Jazz won. But what I expected before the game, I expected Jazz to win because, like you mentioned, like the Clippers are a day rest, and the Jazz had like a week off. So I fully expected the Clippers to win, and if they did lose, I fully expected the Jazz to win. And then if the Clippers won, that'd be an incredible win, but the fact that they lost, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think they're gonna regroup for Game 2 tonight. I think they're gonna win that game. Obviously, I think I'm gonna win the series because I don't. I think the Jazz are frauds, and the Clippers are just a better team. Rudy Gobert got a fake Defensive Player of the Year award. Let me throw that in there. Like Chris mentioned, Donovan Mitchell isn't gonna go for 45 again. The Clippers are gonna play better. They're gonna shoot better. Pandemic P is still gonna be the same, but like Chris mentioned, they only lost by 3, so you don't really need Paul George to come out. You could keep him as Pandemic P. You just gotta shoot better with these other guys and hold down for Mitchell to 5 less points, which is absolutely doable. I think you're gonna see a different Clippers team tonight. I think they're gonna actually win pretty comfortably by double digits. Whether I'm wrong or not doesn't matter, but I do think they're gonna win, and I think the series is probably gonna be over by 5 or 6, in my opinion.
Ooh, 5. All right.
Oh wow.
Jurg?
I do have the Clippers winning this series personally. I wouldn't be shocked if they proved me wrong because just why the hell not? I think ultimately the offense is what failed them. The defense did fine enough, but when PG and Morris both shoot as terribly as they did, it was hard. Especially like you said, Chris. I think like Kawhi, he can only muster it up so many times that game where he will be just complete on both ends of the floor, like we saw in Game 6 against Dallas with the 40 points and the defense. Like he can't do that every single game in every single playoff series. And while even myself, I would hold him to a standard, I can give him a pass in game 1 at the very least because they just finished off the Game 7 with Dallas. It's on the rest of the team to perform, and I think tonight they're going to perform a lot better. They're going to be a lot more efficient defensively. They did a fine enough job. Like Donovan Mitchell is great. They need to hold him from going off for 45 again. I think if the defense just hunkers down a little bit more in certain stretches in the offense, they just make an extra shot here and there. Like it's not asking for much. If Morris or PG both make both make 2 more shots in that game 1, the Clippers pull off a massive upset. So that would have been nice, but now they just got to try to do it in game 2. I wouldn't be necessarily like, unlike compared to Dallas, I'm not hitting red alert if they fall down 0-2, because while this Utah team is pretty good, like there's just something like this Utah team doesn't have the feel to me where it's like they're gonna step on your throat.
They live and die by the 3.
Yeah, it's that, and they just I don't know what it's just
They're
something.
Frauds. They're fraudulent.
Yeah, I just don't see them as a team that's going to step on your throat if they have the 0-2 lead. I could very easily see the Clippers tying it at 2-2 if the Jazz even took a 0-2 lead. So ultimately, that's the way I see it playing out. Hey, if they prove us wrong, heck, they prove us wrong. They're proving a lot of people wrong.
They won't.
Utah and Phoenix
They
are both.
won't.
But yeah, they probably won't. And that in the same time, like, look, I'm not trying to imply anything, but I'm just saying the NBA would like one of the LA teams to be in the dang conference finals. So
I think everyone would want
saying.
like who, like all right, but the Phoenix maybe, but like
Utah.
Like
Utah's the problem.
No,
I'm sorry, Utah.
What I'm trying to get at is that like Phoenix going to the final. Phoenix going to the finals. That'd be cool and all because Devin Booker, but it's just like that's not enough to beat Brooklyn. Spoiler alert. I think the Clippers, while they have their challenge, they have their problems on defense. That's the only team that I think could make it interesting against Brooklyn.
In the West, yeah, I was just about to get to that point. Like I've spoken about this with my friends. The Clippers are the only team in the West that I could see conceivably even having a shot against the Nets because it's Kawhi, and like I know we make fun of him and he did just have the bad game 1, but Paul George actually played good for the first 6 games of the Mavericks series. The worst he did in like games 1 through 6 was 23 points, I think. So if he could just do a little bit better than that, like only have a bad game once every 4 games, PG consistency, please, then they have a chance. I think they should be the favorite to this point in the West. But at the same time, like Dame kind of alluded to when he was talking about the Nuggets, it's like you can't let you can't let the past dictate how you act now. Like, you just need to go into the series like, okay, we're down 0-1 right now, no matter what happens. Like, take it game by game, as basic as that sounds. Like, don't let last year creep into your mind too much, because then that is going to cost you this series. That, like, just overthinking everything and putting that too much pressure on yourself, I don't think that's the way to go. Just let the game come to them. Let Kawhi and PG do their thing, and in the key moments, you just have to come up big. And we've seen it happen. Granted, not to get to the conference finals, but we've seen it happen. And like, this is literally do or die in terms of making the conference finals at this point. There's no more excuses for this team. Like, you either get there or you're disappointing again. So that's how it is for the Clippers. We're all going to wait with bated breath to see if they make our predictions come true. But at the same time, the Mavericks went to 7, and all of us thought that series was going to be done right quick. So
True.
Like, with this Clippers team, what could we expect, really?
I agree. Man. Long episode, but entertaining, so I think it's worth it. Stacked week, gentlemen. Stacked week. Beautiful analysis from both of you as always. Who knows what we'll have next week? Aaron Rodgers continues to be upset at the Packers. The sun is hot, basically. But we'll be deep into the playoffs, as always, as the weeks progress. And, of course, if there's any news, we'll cover it, because that's what we do. So, Jurg, Dame, thank you to all listeners that have got this far. Thank you, all 5 of you. Until then, until next time, gentlemen, peace.
Take care.
Peace.